He's the Banksy of murder.
Would it be so bad if an 84-year-old got into heroin?
Welcome to the Cat Organizational Podcast.
You idiot. It's written down in front of you idiot.
This is like the buffalo chicken wrap of answers.
I haven't heard about hot orcs in a while.
We were so horny for motion controls in 2005.
I can't wait to come back and tell you how it was Noah's Ark, you asshole.
I would also like to retroactively say I've never had cotton candy acid.
So Andrew's 100% doing a voice, right?
Everybody get off IMDb now. Time to record.
This episode and probably this whole podcast is a mistake.
Hello and welcome to Debate This, the show where no one is right but someone is definitely wrong. In this show, we take time out of our busy adult lives to talk about comic books, video games, and how we have done nothing to deserve how good Season 2 of The Mandalorian is so far. We have done nothing in 2020 that warrants that. We don't deserve it.
We haven't done anything to deserve anything good in 2020. Let's be honest, Todd.
We do deserve the Monster Hunter movie. That's it. That's the level of deserving that we have.
We reap what we sow, except for The Mandalorian. Thank you, Jon Favreau. So, for regular listeners, you're likely familiar with, us sharing how Debate This has a Patreon, patreon.com/debatethiscast. And if you love us and you want us to dive into a very specific nerdy topic, one of the ways you can support us is to commission your very own flavor text. So you know what? That's what we're going to do today. Thanks to our Patreon, who goes by username Zakix, we are going to talk about what I believe is the most popular MOBA, which, if you don't know what a MOBA is, it's a multiplayer online battle arena game called, you guessed it, League of Legends. So, again, thank you, Zakix. Hopefully, I and we do your game justice.
We won't.
Nah.
We absolutely won't. I have a question. I have a 30-second to 1 minute thought experiment.
Yes, you with the hand.
Yep. Well, I have a hand up for everybody who's listening to this podcast that isn't on the Zoom call. How do you define a multiplayer online battle arena? Because when this came out, it was a very specific definition. But this is kind of is a taco a sandwich argument. Any multiplayer game right now, is PUBG a MOBA? Is a battle royale a multiplayer online battle arena? Is WoW Arena a MOBA? What is the definition of that?
Well, Andrew, we could record the episode that was commissioned, or we could spend the next 3 hours diving into that question.
Well, here's the thought experiment. I really want to get the energy of being a part of the League of Legends community. Therefore,
you want to get all three of us yelling at you about three different things.
Yeah. Someone's got to stick their thumb up their butt at some point. So,
well, to take a page out of the book of our friends at Left Trigger, Right Trigger, I think they're all just head clickers. In the Left Trigger, Right Trigger, there are only 4 kind of game genres. I think that all of these games are head clickers.
I think that was a perfect answer.
Yeah. Well, and I would normally have, really narrowed that scope down and just said League of Legends, Dota, Heroes of something else that used to be out that was a lot like this.
Pokemon Unite, that's a new one. That's a thing I know. There's the thing I know.
I'm sure that's really good.
Yuck.
Man, talk about there's no way they're sticking that landing. But I remember way back in the day playing, it was Monday Night Fighting or whatever.
Oh yeah, Monday night Fights. Monday Night
was that?
Monday Night Combat.
Monday Night Combat. That was 6-on-6 combat arena that played a lot like this, only
that was
first-person shooter.
That was Overwatch.
And so I would make the argument that a MOBA is
Team Fortress.
A lot of different things. But hey, nerds, get at us. Let us know. We'll start this argument. But anyway, that's not the point. We're here to talk about League of Legends. And to help me out on this journey, I've summoned some of the greatest champions of Runeterra to each pick a lane while I jungle on the optimized path. Carrying the team today with me are Matt Gragas, the rabble-rouser Cole, Andrew Malzahar, the Prophet of the Void Henderson, and Kyle Tom Kench, the River King Harper.
All right, I looked mine up, and he is some kind of
a Creole fish baron,
back alley catfish man. And I'm not
I love him,
and I'm not convinced the other two aren't also fishmen of some kind.
He looks specifically like a Sly Cooper villain.
Yes.
Yes.
He is a catfish Creole like river baron.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Let me finish this.
He definitely talks like Gambit.
You know, boys, I'm gonna need you to pick up your summoner spells and help me kite the blue buff real quick today.
All right.
Now that I got that,
I was on board with
that?
all the jargon until that line.
Yeah.
now that I got that out of there, man, just a real quick plug. If you go and like at any point in time, once this podcast episode drops, look up any of these characters in their reveal videos. They got elaborate after like 2013, 2014. And they all have voices, and Tom Kench sounds exactly what you think Tom Kench sounds like. And boy, are they good.
I looked mine up, and I'm a big fat drunk Viking, and A, that's cool. B, it appears as though my main ability is to throw a keg of beer. And C, I have a passive ability called Happy Hour. So all of those things are very on brand with me. Thank you.
Yeah, Gragas is excellent. And I don't know, Andrew just hit me as a Malzahar Prophet of the Void type guy.
This is who I would play if I played this game.
There is a guy, and I'm not going to be able to find him, of course. There is a guy who looks like he's right out of Final Fantasy 14, but I can't find him, and I'll tell you why that is here eventually, and we'll get to that. So just as we always do with these flavor texts, so guys, what do you know about League of Legends on a scale from 1 to you've cursed at your computer about it? What is your experience with League of Legends?
I'll kick this off. So what I know about the game is like next to nothing, other than that it exists, but I have experienced League through a couple of really good friends who have lost serious portions of their life because of League, including a bunch of fraternity brothers in college. But one specific anecdote that I would like to share is this kid that I went to high school with named BJ, who was a couple of years older than me and went off to college in New York and failed out of college specifically because he played too much League of Legends.
Nice.
And I think made it 3 semesters before he dropped out of college and moved home. And I was talking to him and was like, hey, like, what happened? Like, did you just not like the school? Was it the wrong place? Like, what happened? He's like, no, it was entirely League of Legends. I never stopped playing League of Legends, and I dropped out of college. So that is my experience with
Yikes.
League.
Woof.
And every story that I have heard about League is incredibly similar to that. Maybe not that extreme, but like, yeah, I was in a happy, committed relationship and had friends, and then I played League of Legends, like that sort of thing.
League of Legends, not even once.
So I'll go next. I've attempted to play League of Legends exactly twice. Both times I ran into issues with either my computer or the UI or both, and just kind of was like, probably a sign I don't need to invite this into my life, and then didn't. I also know a couple people who've played League of Legends more seriously than I've ever played any video game in my life, is the nicest way I'll put that. One of them being a friend of the show, Zach from Around the Monitor. He played semi-competitively, I think. He'll correct me on that if I'm wrong. And then mutual friend of ours, they were on a team together. But I have not seriously played this game. I've played Blizzard's MOBA.
Heroes of the Storm.
Heroes of the Storm.
That's what I was trying to think of earlier.
I played that one for a few months, and that, it was fun. I like the concept, but the thing with League for me was that the games take like an hour to play, and you can't really quit them when you're bored in the middle of them without
screwing over your entire team.
So, and that factored into my like, cool, I don't know if I always have an hour to commit to gaming for one game a night. So that's been my experience with League of Legends.
I won't steal your thunder, Todd, because for listeners, mine and Todd's experience about League is pretty similar.
Intertwined.
When we graduate, our dark year after graduating college.
The worst year of your life?
Yeah, the worst year of your life when you're 23. I mean, is the best and worst year.
Yeah.
I'll say this, and I'll let Todd tell the story. I did not get as deep as Todd did, and that is not because that is not because I'm better. It's because I was way more trash at the game, and I got butthurt because the people that we played with basically told me to go kill myself. So so I was like, cool, and I just happened to get like a full-time job. Because I was managing a Jimmy John's and like working from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then just playing League until 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So I got a big kid job. And
yeah, it's because you worked more hours at Jimmy John's than Todd worked at Buckeye Corner.
It's true.
Like 2 more hours. Like let's call a spade a spade.
And they weren't good hours.
Yeah. So I fucked out after I got a job and never looked back. And then started playing.
That Buckeye Corner's still there.
Oh, good. Some things will outlast time.
And to be fair, like to Matt's point, like my like that is not a game that I will ever like get super into because I have always had a steady stream of either World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 11, and now Final Fantasy 14. So that's my this. So
yeah.
Before I share the specifics of my relationship with League of Legends, I will say, Andrew, just for your reference and anyone else. The character that would fit squarely into Final Fantasy XIV is Set, spelled S-E-T-T. He is a half-open shirt, punk rock baron.
I love him. He looks awesome.
Yeah, he looks like he would be an antagonist, but that's not the point. So my experience with League of Legends, like Andrew had shared, I did play for probably a good 2 years. And when Andrew and I lived together a lot that year, because I had nothing else going for me in life except for League of Legends, I had made friends with some guys through Halo Reach who also played League of Legends, and that's what got me in. And then I drug Andrew in because he and I lived in the same sad apartment together for that sad year of our life. And we would.
And he was sad enough you could malleate him into playing.
Yeah, I was impressionable enough to get him to be sad with me, and we would drink Land Shark Lager and eat pizza and listen to Minus the Bear while playing
4 a.m.
while playing League of Legends. And when you win and you're good, it's great. But I think Andrew and I had a similar experience where these guys we teamed up with were way, way, way better than us.
Way better than us.
And we would just get trashed in these matches and like would pick up on the hints of them typing into the chat that we were the reason why they were losing.
Yeah, it was like imagine if you will, you're a senior in high school and you go to you do your weekend stay at a college. And somehow you end up partying with all the seniors.
Yeah. And you want to be cool and you want to hang with them.
And you want to be cool. You're like, yeah, boobies and beer. Yeah. Like you just don't know what you're doing.
And then the seniors keep dropping hints that the party would be a lot cooler if the high schoolers left.
If you left.
Yeah. Exactly.
And like in this metaphor, you probably like tipped over the beer pong table. And you said, I didn't know I was supposed to burn my exhaust on the minion. That was a bad thing that I did, right? Or like, I accidentally used my flash for a stupid reason, and now everyone's dunking on me in the chat. Or my favorite, and I remember this now almost 10 years later, someone typing into the chat, let him die. Someone was Shen, and they were using their Shen alt to come in, and they said, no, let him die. So anyway...
Todd, before we move on from your dark year, I have a question about the setup. Did you guys play in the same room? Did you go?
Would.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we would.
Andrew would broadcast his onto his TV in the living room, and I would sit on my $200 Walmart laptop.
Yeah. And all I remember from that period, seriously, like I'm not kidding, I blocked this out of my memory, but I do remember Todd always had like a little notebook, like a mini notebook of all the things that he had to buy.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, because you build your character each game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's real.
And if you did that wrong, I'm sure the chat was just thrilled with you.
You have to uninstall the game. That's how it works.
And I want to add this too, that like the experiences that we had may not be the norm, but you would level up and you'd get paired with people that you level against. So much like when we play in a group for Overwatch, if you're new and you're in a group with level 30 people in League of Legends, you're playing against level 30 people, not the new people,
right?
And you will get dunked on. So
I mean, I definitely not all I've heard, but something that I hear often about LoL is how incredibly toxic the community is. And from cutting my teeth in the Super Smash Brothers community, which is also incredibly toxic, like, hooey. But I remember as another side story, seeing on Twitter that AOC was like silver in League of Legends one season or something like that, and
It's
knowing
ridiculous.
that at that point she could handle anything that our government had to throw at her because she can play League, so she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine.
And we don't need to spend a lot of time on the community thing, because I think you could probably make the argument like every community has its pros and
Gaming
cons.
and toxicity.
Gaming is pretty toxic to begin with.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like it's at different levels, right? Like you can, I'm sure that like anything, you can find your niche, you can find your group, and probably have a good time.
Well, so all of that said, here's what I want to do today. So I'm glad that, thank you for sharing what you've got. I think that you'll learn some new things here today. Hopefully you, the listener, also take away some cool things about League of Legends. But here's what we're doing, kind of a 3-point approach. So I'm going to give just a brief backstory over League of Legends and its history. I want to then give you, painting in broad strokes, the overarching lore and the main storyline of League of Legends and what kind of sets up the gameplay of League of Legends. And then kind of as a treat at the end, working with the patron that did support this and kind of my own research, I picked just a couple of the cooler champion stories to hit, because all the stories of all the champions weave into the lore. And it's really, really interesting in different ways. So we'll go ahead and jump in. I had shared with the guys on this call when we started, I posted the link to all the League of Legends characters. So as I reference either places or characters at the end, they can go and check them out. They, like I said, they can also check out their characters that I linked them to. But I'm going to go ahead and jump in to the overview of League of Legends. And so League of Legends debuted back in 2009 by Riot Games. So that means, Andrew, when you and I, and then I guess Kyle too, when you jumped in, it was still like a year and a half.
It was a very
2 years
young game at that point.
Yeah, it was
established, but it was
and I know
young.
a lot of the problems we had with it at the time were like partially growing pains from that.
Oh, for sure. It was, and this is to say, like, I have not played League of Legends since at least 2012. It would probably be a safe assumption that things have gotten better in 8 years, and they've probably helped the on-ramp of new players. They've probably helped like the guide rails of people who don't know what to buy at the store.
Probably.
So I would like to say that the things that made me sad 8 years ago can't hurt me any longer. So and for those that don't know, League of Legends, it was certainly based off of Defense of the Ancient, which was a kickoff of Warcraft, where it took
a custom game in Warcraft 3.
Yeah, so, and my friends and I back in high school used to play that a lot. And that was also a MOBA. League of Legends follows that freemium model where the game itself is free. It has rotating cast of characters you can play on each week. But if you've found a favorite character and you want to permanently have them all the time, you pay for them, or you pay for skins, or you do things like that. So the game itself is free. I know I paid $20 for a skin for a character way back when and access to that character. So they have my money. So obviously, like, that is their foundational support there financially. And just to like anchor this in 2009, when the game came out, it had 40 playable characters. I'm going to shortly from now share how many they currently have.
I have not looked up how many they currently have because I want to be shocked by that number.
Don't look ahead in the show notes, and I promise you it'll be a treat. So I think it's important to them point out this quickly became one of the most played and watched esports games. So regularly, year after year, there were world championships and there were prize money. Like, this was a big growing thing for the esports community. Probably the biggest thing that grew immediately when, there were like Counter-Strike and Call of Duty were doing games, but this one and like Team Fortress were probably the biggest ones to show up.
Well, and this one definitely, League of Legends definitely, I'm pretty sure, definitely, don't hold me to this, set record after record of like biggest prize pool kind of thing. Like,
yes. Yeah. So to that point, the biggest one that I could find in recent years, 2018 World Championships prize pool for the competitors in their various rankings was over $6 million.
Hot damn.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and so that's not just like the top placer, but like the rankings overall, $6 million. And further, there were 40 million unique viewers that like tuned in over the course of it, and then to do one more the next year. So, and this is the last year that there were statistics for. The 2019 World Championship had 100 million unique viewers over the course of the tournament.
Holy shit.
100 million.
Wow.
That's amazing.
So
that's
for
absolutely amazing.
For comparison, the NFL playoffs pull 32 million over the course of the playoffs.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and obviously that's not 100 million all at once, but like 100 million unique viewers.
Amazing. So like that's the thing, and what I was kind of getting at before, like this meta or this meme that like the LoL community is really toxic. Like I would argue you can't even say that. You can't even call it a community. If that's 3 times the NFL playoffs, like that's just culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's just a thing that exists. Like it's not even this like niche thing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 39 million people in California. So like, 2.5 times the population in California.
Wow.
And so back to this point that I had said a bit ago. So in 2020, we currently have 151 champions.
Get the fuck out of here.
Oh my god.
I did not count, but that's what Wikipedia told me.
Whoa.
Get at me if I'm wrong, but if I'm scrolling this page, there are names and characters that I still
Holy shit.
I still every now and again get like a YouTube suggested like video on new character reveals. But oh my god, I've not seen half of these and they are wild.
Can you answer this question? Do they still just like rotate so you can theoretically play this game for free? You just have to like accept that every week you will only have access to 6 or so of these 150 characters, and then next week they will be gone and you will have to learn 6 more.
So okay, I do not play anymore, but the Wikipedia does say they are still on a free champion rotation.
I can't imagine not paying and playing this game, because like even back when we played it, it was like I remember it's like, oh, like Caitlyn's free this week, awesome, I love playing as Caitlyn, but like 100, that is as many that like there are a Pokemon Red and Blue worth.
Yep.
So I'm checking
here.
This is League of Legends Wikipedia, and again, like, sorry, I just don't play the game, and for this research I did a lot of reading, a lot of watching. I did not re-download the game. I'm sorry.
It was not gameplay mechanics, the flavor text. It was the lore. It's fine.
And here it is. The selection process is indeed random, resulting in some champions appearing more often in rotations than others. Some champions do not even appear in a rotation for an entire season.
Yeah.
New champions are added to the free champion rotation on the 3rd week following their release.
Wow.
So, yeah. And again, like once you find that character you like, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna spend the $5 or whatever it is to unlock them, because I'm good with that one. I liked playing as Heimerdinger, and he was this little guy, like little nerdy guy that shot rockets and had turrets.
He's Torbjorn.
And I was like, yeah, he was Torbjorn more or less. And I was like, I need him forever. I can only win with him. He's mine.
So question: when you say like pay for the game, is there an amount you can play that, an amount that you can pay that unlocks everything, or is it like you've got to pick your couple heroes and go with that?
If I recall correctly, and please comment, shout me out if I'm not. This is like non-mobile. This was like the first major microtransactions as a game.
Yeah,
like free to play as a genre of.
It certainly had been done
games
before this, but this definitely like showed all the other developers like, hey, this model makes a lot of money.
This works, and it made a fuck ton of money. But it wasn't like the loot box thing. Like Todd said, you would buy. It might be like this now, but you would just buy the thing that you wanted. So it's like compare this to Overwatch. Like you really want that Stone Bridget skin, you can have it for the low payment of $20, but you don't pay to install the game.
To answer your question, Matt, every hero costs somewhere between like $2 or $3 or $20 to $30 worth of gems. So there was a finite, like if you bought a bunch of gems, you would could eventually just straight up pay for every hero without going through a loot box. But it was a range. It wasn't a set like pay $200 and you have everything forever. It's
Got it.
It's, yeah.
Who knows? I mean, I guess who knows? People that play it now. But like,
The
I
100
mean,
million people that are involved in this community.
maybe there is a way now that you can get access to everyone for a price. But like 151 characters, like yikes.
Yeah.
I venture to say most people find their favorite 5 and they hold on to them.
And then maybe once you're into it, you probably buy the new one as it comes out.
Yeah.
For $30 every 3 months, probably, or something.
It's not like Smash Brothers in the sense that like you would buy a pass to like download more characters because you're likely going to try them at some point in time. You just may not have any interest, in that character because you've seen them play and you don't want any part of it. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it does. And like I said it last week when we were recording the WoW episode, that like there are 30-ish heroes in Overwatch, and I've been playing for 6 months, and there are 10 of them that I don't know what the buttons do. Like,
yeah,
I cannot imagine 151 characters that rotate every 3 to 6 weeks. Like, bleh.
It's wild.
Well, so to just one more bit about this game and how it plays, just like the overall gameplay overview, just for anyone who's not familiar with League of Legends. So typically the game is played 5v5, though it's worth noting there are alternative settings. I remember there used to be one where instead of being like 5v5 lanes, they went down 3 different lanes. It was one. Everyone goes down just the same lane, and it's just like a nightmare.
Is 5v5 still the standard? Like if I go watch League now, it'll be 5v5.
Yes.
More likely than not. Okay.
And I would say, as someone, again, who has not played in 7 or 8 years, I still periodically watch their championships when they post them. It's still 5v5. It still looks familiar for the most part to what we watch. Like, there's certainly been changes to items, characters, a little bit of the structure, but it immediately looks familiar. I actually, for the people on the Zoom call, put a graph, a little diorama, so you know what it looks like when there is top lane, there is middle lane, there is bottom lane, then there's the jungle. Typically, it's a solo mid, a solo top, 2 people in the bottom, and then 1 person that's jungling. That's typically the structure.
For anyone who is absolutely unfamiliar with this is top down. It play like the best way I would describe a MOBA is like chess, where you control an individual piece, and it's only the back line. So like everyone's got its own special thing they do, and you go up against the other team, but like you are controlling one chess piece on a board of obstacles, experience, and items you can buy.
Yeah, the way to explain the gameplay, at least. So when I say like lanes and jungling, there are effectively just 3 lanes, and then the jungle that surrounds the rest of the map that doesn't fall nicely into these 3 lanes. And so teams will split their 5 people up to evenly go around the map, like one in 2 of the lanes, each one of them has 1 person from your team. One of the lanes has 2 people typically, and then 1 person runs through the jungle, killing the things in the jungle because you're trying to gain experience and gold. The goal is that your team is going to push their lanes, try and push against the other enemies and their minions, while taking down defense towers in the way. Ultimately, the goal is to get to the other team and destroy their nexus, which is their magical thing that you have to destroy to win. And again, while you push, your characters gain experience and they gain gold. Your characters then level up during the game, so you get to select your skills, which ones you want to level up and in what order. And then your gold, you have to return back to your base to buy new things that impact your character's speed or their attack or their damage or their resistance. And that is where it ends up being a system that is fairly easy to pick up on the basics, but I think it's the nuance that probably separates people from being, able to hold their own and be really, really good.
The builds, for sure. You have to know what build you're going. You have to know what attack you're choosing at what level based on what your opponent is doing. Todd, and Lord help us if we forget this graphic in the show notes or whatever, because we're going to reference it a lot. Are the dots the defense towers?
Yes.
And then like the nexus is at the base, each respective base. Okay.
Yeah, this is a very, very basic graph. I don't even know where I grabbed this. I think I just put like League of Legends MOBA graph, and it was like, here's here is the dotted John Madden field that you can scribble on to show people where they need to go.
I mean, it's a very good, like, every MOBA uses a variation of this grab.
Yeah, if League of Legends was a college course, this would be like the 101. This would be just like up on the whiteboard.
Mm-hmm.
We've effectively scratched the surface of remedial League of Legends.
Yeah.
So now that everyone has at least a fairly good grasp on what League of Legends is, how it's played, that sort of thing, I want to, and again, with very broad strokes, hit the lore of League of Legends, because like a lot of games that have been around for almost a decade, actually over a decade, I guess, there is lore. Now, I'm not positive that they had all of this planned out before they kicked off what they were doing, but they've done it in such a way that as they release more heroes continue to build the lore, much like what Overwatch did when we talked about that.
I want to say from like casual references I've picked up on Reddit, there have been 2 major lore overhauls.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
When you say overhauls, you mean like rewrites, retcons?
Retcons, yeah, where they
Cool.
they've at least done it, I want to say twice, where they've kind of been like, all right, we've been running for 4 years, we're going to reset everything about, it'll stay basically the same, but we're just kind of drawing more lines in between them, erasing other lines, and then they've done that again to get us up to 200 or 150.
And I think that matches. So the information that I pulled from seems like it's fairly accurate for the last couple of years. Like I said, I watched a good amount of YouTube videos, a good amount of diving into character backstories, and just overall searching the League of Legends wiki. So I've got just kind of the story that gets you to the point here in League of Legends where you are playing as your favorite champion in Summoner's Rift, fighting against other champions. How do we get there? What is that? This is what the story is. So effectively, to just get started. So League of Legends takes place on the world called Runeterra, which Runeterra is probably the most like on point name for something like this. I feel like whoever thought up Runeterra and was like, someone search, see if people have used the word Runeterra before.
It's the Costco of D&D locales.
It's definitely one of those like, how has this name not been used before?
Right?
Great, let's use it now.
Well, and it gets even better because, so if you think about it, Runeterra would translate to Magic Earth.
Yep.
And Runeterra is a world that was created using world runes.
Yeah.
So like
Cool.
Got
it like clicks so many different times that reading it, I was like, that's pretty wild.
It's like Wizards of the Coast got the patent in 1985 but never did anything with it.
Right?
It was like, oh shit.
Yeah. Further, as I talk about these things, so for you on the call, I have put in the link to an interactive map found at map.leagueoflegends.com. For you listening, we'll make sure this gets into the show notes. It is a truly interactive map that, like I said, as I go over things in broad strokes, this map is the most interactive and in detail thing, to the point that you can click on locations and find out which heroes are currently or originally from there and their history that's tied to there. It's deep.
There is definitely audio associated with this interactive map.
It makes noise when you touch it, so why don't you make sure you mute that tab before you either use it on this Zoom call or use it at work. Not that anyone's going to work. So there are various nations that make up all of Runeterra, this world that we're looking at. So there's Freljord, which is the harsh frozen land. Demacia.
Hey Todd, is Freljord where the dwarves live?
No, it's not that easy. Okay. It's not. I mean, but no, it's not that easy.
It is. Okay.
There's Demacia, the proud military kingdom. There's Noxus, the brutal expansionist empire. There's Ionia, the first lands. There's Piltover and Zaun, which is the dual city states. It's kind of neat. Like they're put on a bridge on either side of the bridge, and they command that whole trading route, which is kind of interesting. There's Targon, the sprawling western mountains. Shurima, the fallen desert empire. Ixtal, the perilous eastern jungle. Bilgewater, the lawless port city.
Nice.
And Shadow Isles, the land surrounded by the black mist.
I like Bilgewater as a name for a town. That's really good.
Bilgewater's real good.
Bilgewater's very good. We are not going to go into each one of these. And as I said, I'm going to tell the story, kind of how we get to Summoner's Rift and champions fighting. But there are nuances of story with each and every one of these. But boy, that is not one episode. We are not. We are much like when I told the Battle World storyline, and I just glazed over the 44 different lands of Battle World. We're not doing that here either.
There is an amount of money you can give us that we will do a League of Legends lore podcast and delve into the deep lore of League of Legends. We aren't going to disclose what that number is. You just have to guess.
Yeah. You have to write it on a napkin, and we may or may not
slide it to us. And then we, without looking at it, we slide it back and we say double it.
Yeah.
We close that loophole after Derek made Andrew watch 900 episodes of
One Piece.
One Piece.
Yeah, we're changing the user agreements on that bad boy.
Okay, so we've got this cool land called Runeterra, right? This cool world. Now, you're if you think about the Google world view, right? Here's Runeterra. So now we're gonna zoom out, because like, where does Runeterra come from? And the answer is a group of beings called the Celestials. Now, they are not the Marvel Universe Celestials, but they are kind of the same concept as the Marvel Universe.
But Marvel
Celestials.
doesn't own that trademark, so we're going to use the name again.
Yeah.
Right?
Never before has a comic series made me more tired.
Well, okay, so think for all purposes here, think of the Celestials in the Runeterra / League of Legends universe as these all-powerful magical beings. They just exist beyond Runeterra. They watch over it, they guide it. Depending on which one we're talking about, which Celestial, some of them actually get involved occasionally, but mostly they're just hands off, like just checking it out. They're like, hey, Runeterra, we made you this cool thing. Awesome. You do your thing. Think of them as like the demigods of Runeterra. So we have zoomed out of Runeterra, and now we see these like cool beings chilling in space watching it. Now, I know you're asking, where did the Celestials, like what's beyond them?
I'm waiting on bated breath for that answer, Todd.
Well, so we're gonna zoom out one more time, and you find what are called the Watchers. Not the Watchers from the Marvel Universe.
Fuck off. Come
The Watchers. Okay, so they're two very different things, right? So the Watchers are these like fathomless, like bodiless beings that just have been in existence since the beginning of time, and they exist in what's called the void. They're just these things. They just hang out there, right? And so they've just been hanging out there forever, just being like, do we know what we are? We're just here. What are we?
Are the Watchers the player inserts into this universe, Todd?
No.
Okay.
No, they're not. And but the Watchers do become this big story driving thing because they were just hanging out forever in this void. And then one day, this like speck, like a light, a spark, just kind of like floats amongst them. And it's called the Spark of Life. And they found this thing, and they're like, "Oh, we've been sitting here for." This is very Transformers-esque.
Yeah,
like,
yes.
we've been sitting here. What's this thing? And so they kind of like, blob over to it. And they find that it is a window into a reality outside of their own existence. And it's the window into reality to see Runeterra and the Watchers. And so now Sorry. Runeterra and the Celestials. Runeterra and the Celestials. Yeah. There are layers. So the biggest outside layer is the Watchers. Oof. Then you have the Celestials. Then you have Runeterra.
League of Legends is an onion.
It's an onion.
So the spark floated around in the Watchers layer
world area,
and that lets them now watch the Celestials world.
Yes.
Okay, so they weren't even, despite the fact that they were called the Watchers, they were not able to watch.
Yeah,
they weren't watching.
Now they're watching.
Yeah,
now they're watching.
Now they're watching.
Now who watches the Watchers?
Who watches the Watchers?
Thank you.
So basically, you've got this Spark of Life that is the rift that into Runeterra, and the Celestials, the Watchers can now see. So we've got these Watchers. Their motives unknown, and they are watching. So we're gonna go back to the Celestials now. So the Celestials are looking over Runeterra, and they're like, yes, all is good. We're trying to build life and everything else. But they could sense that they were being watched. They knew there was this embodiment of something that is watching them. And I have the bullet point here. That'll come back as a thing. So,
Sure.
Cool. They're demigods that are like, there's something bigger watching us. That's probably a problem. So anyway, we're back to Runeterra. Here's this planet. It is starting to show signs of life. There are mortals on it, and the Celestials are trying to like use their power to like guide these beings and create good things. And so Celestials do like any demigod would, and they begin to terraform all of Runeterra to fit their needs and what they want for the mortals, and basically try to build these areas that would support life and mortals, supporting them, praying to them, that sort of thing. Further, the Celestials begin finding mortals that on Runeterra that they like pick out as like exceptional, and they give them the ability, or they handpick them basically to be like, these will become ascended beings. Like, these mortals will become the heroes of the mortals. Like, they're going to be our strongest, our best, our brightest. Go figure. These ascended, many of them end up becoming champions in the League of Legends lore.
Okay,
like,
so these are our planeswalkers.
Yeah, these are the planeswalkers. That would be a good connection there. Now, all this time, while these Celestials are finding these mortals, giving them influence, giving them power, being praised for it, the Watchers are watching it, like that meme of the guy like rubbing his hands in the background. The Watchers are watching this, and they're like, man, I want in on that hot worship action. I need it. Like, I need it. I need it. And so the thing is, though, all they've got is this window that they can see in, and this window also has created these very small rifts around Runeterra, but they can't like get through the rifts. They don't have the ability to do that. What they do know is that they need spies. Like, they need influence on Runeterra to gain power, to gain, like I said, influence, to be able to be there for the party, for this like mortal worship party. And so they decide, hey, we got to find some people who can be influenced. We're gonna get them. And the story that I found, that I don't know if this is the first one, but I think it is like one of the telling stories, was they target the three ruling sisters of the Freyjord, specifically the sister known as Lysandra, the Ice Witch. And so Lysandra is a champion in League of Legends. And so she ruled the Freyjord with her sister Avarosa and her other sister Suryelda. Now, what's interesting is like one sister was blind, which is Lysandra. One was deaf and one was mute. And it's really, really cool if you super get into all their story, is that each one of them did something as a grab for power and was punished by losing a sense.
Cool.
And further, some of their stories even tie back to other characters. So specifically for Lysandra, she did something that was bad or whatever, and her name's the Ice Witch. Anyway, it's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
She had her sight taken from her from another character named Volibear, who I believe might have been a Celestial.
Todd, question.
Answer.
Okay, so is this like a what's the best comparison? Well, I guess Planeswalker. Like, is this a Planeswalker thing where like there are good what do they call them? Ascended. Are there a good ascended or bad ascended, or is it more like people become ascended and then they fall victim to like power corrupts, basically?
So yes to all. There are
Okay.
good and bad ascended. Though all the ones that start are good. I don't know if Lysandra is necessarily ascended, but some people just have powers. They just like they are magic users. So like Lysandra, I don't think
some people are intelligence casters and some people are charisma casters.
Absolutely. That's
Cool.
that's a good one. Some people are fighters, that their magical power is fighting better.
Yeah.
And some are actually magic. Anyway, so Lysandra, since she lost her she lost her
good Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, that was an Ohio
Lysandra. Yeah, I caught it once I
Lysandra.
said it and I didn't want to think about it.
I don't think Lysandra is an ascended, because I'm seeing
I
a
don't
lot
think
of
so
fan
either.
art imagining her as an ascended.
So Lysandra, since she is blind, she has what I would call Daredevil complex, where she can hear things much better, to the point that she can hear things that other people cannot, which leads to her being able to hear the whispers of the Watchers. So the Watchers are trying to give her like the evilly whispers of like, hey, we'll offer you power. We're going to give immortality to your people. All that we ask is that us, this shadowy power that has not announced itself to you as to what we are, you just have to let us in. And when you do that, we just need a place to chill. And it'll be cool.
Seems fine.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, like I kind of ruled this place with my two sisters. I'm just gonna agree for my two sisters and all of our people. This seems fine. And so, anyway, years later, it's not fine. So the Watchers and all their terrible void monsters emerge through the abyss, and it's suddenly not chill. It's not cool at all. And so everyone fights back. Her sisters revolt against her once it's kind of like, hey, the gig's up here. Like this is an evil influence that I've let in. Sisters turn against her. Ultimately, Lysandra, she being an ice mage, freezes the entire Freyjord over completely, locking the Watchers in the Howling Abyss is what the area is called. And it also kills her sisters. So it's a whole thing.
Dang.
And
shit.
Yeah, I put actually a pretty cool image in here. It is a frozen Watcher in the Howling Abyss. So it's a frozen eyeball monster.
Gotcha.
It's frozen in the abyss, which the Howling Abyss was a League of Legends map for a while. I don't know if it still is, but I remember that being a
Got
thing.
it.
Quick question for you, Todd. This picture that you have in the document, is this gameplay footage? Is this like cutscene footage? Is this fan art? Do you know?
I do not know. I don't believe it's gameplay footage. I don't think and again, community, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the gameplay ever really hits much of the lore, because the gameplay is just MOBA. Like,
yeah, right. I mean, like,
and maybe there's like theme MOBA, but it's much like Overwatch doesn't hit lore.
Right, right. I guess I more just was like, is this from some cinematic? Like, did Riot design this
that
look?
would be great.
Or did a fan design this look?
Is this an official Riot image, or is it from somewhere else? This is
I pulled it off the League of Legends wiki. So take that as you will.
Probably pretty official.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
If it's not official, I think it's agreed upon that's what we're going for. So that is just a good starting example of like how the Watchers are trying to gain influence on Runeterra. And more of that is going to happen, and we're not going to hit a lot of it. But I think that's an important, good example of like, oh, this is a champion you come to learn. Here is her tragic backstory. It links a bunch of other things. There's also, I mean, there's an ice bird named Anivia that was one of the defenders at that battle. Anivia was announced back when Andrew and I were playing, so she wasn't part of like the first 2 years, but then they came in. So again, they have these stories and they kind of start melding people in and they support one another. So, I moved my wiki page. Hold on, I need that.
Also, I was just going back. I've been flipping back and forth on the champions page. Volibear is just a big polar bear, just to be abundantly clear.
Yeah. In case you didn't catch that.
You named your polar bear Volar Bear?
Volar Bear?
Yeah.
So, around Runeterra, there are all these areas now, like, that are populated by mortals that they want power. That's just how this is. Like, this is Magic Earth. Magic Earth humans want power. And so now you have these different nations, the ones that I listed earlier, they're all trying to channel the power of the Celestials through these discs that they create to empower their own Ascended. Like, they find their favorite person and they're like, this is our guy. We're going to rally behind him. We're going to channel energy through the Ascended, or channel energy from the Celestials through these discs that we create. And we're going to make these really powerful Ascended. This works sometimes. And this ends up giving us some of the champions that we have now. So the earliest champions from League of Legends often have this story. They were the favored fighter person, whatever. And I've actually got some pretty good examples of that later. Now, not all of the nations that I listed earlier have the ability to do this. You know, they don't all have the technology. They don't all have the resources. And so what does any desperate group do when they want something and they can't do it the good, wholesome way.
Create a bad copy of it.
Yeah, so they scream into the void and call for dark help. So that is exactly what happens. Specifically, there's a good example where a community based around a void. Let me pull up the map. It's over in it might be over in Noxus. I don't remember now. There is a place. Yeah, this is whatever. There is a place where they have a small void is there, and so they scream into the void and they say, "We call upon dark powers to empower us because we're gonna get beat up by the other people over there because they have powers." And so this ultimately starts these battles. These battles just begin raging across Runeterra. We have the Ascended, like these good, fighters for good, and these like void monsters that are spilling out of the void. And ultimately, this battle leads to a number of the Ascended being corrupted and being, touched by the void. And so that becomes a plot for some of the champions. Like, this was a good champion, and then they became a fallen champion, and that whole 9 yards. So there's war. War is everywhere in Runeterra. That's a thing that happens. As this goes on, these Ascended are just like fighting amongst themselves, these good and bad Ascended, to the point that the Ascended that are still there and are corrupt, they ultimately end up turning to blood magic as a thing that they do, which sounds like, are your teens getting into blood magic kind of thing? Well, that's exactly what this is. So found out more at 9.
Are the teens getting into blood magic, Todd?
These teens are getting into blood magic so badly that they are referred to as the Darken, and that's bad. And now all this shit's happening, and the Celestials, mind you, are watching Runeterra in their lawn chairs on their front porch, and they're like, well, shit, we didn't want any of this to happen. We were just trying to do a cool thing and have like a cool party here on Runeterra. We have to figure this out. And so the Celestials do get involved ultimately. They send another one of their champions down there to be involved to help them. And so Celestials, they end up teaching the mortals on Runeterra how to capture the Darken and contain them and that sort of thing. So that's great. Problem solved for now. Anyway, war has calmed at that point, and the Celestials look at this whole situation and they're like, this could have gone better. We tried to, create this whole culture where people were gonna, worship us and love us, and we were gonna do this cool thing for them. Didn't happen. Anyway, they ultimately at this point were realizing like we were trying to create these champions and this influence to fight back these monsters in the void, and well, that didn't happen. But at least we've got things relatively under control right now. So things are pretty calm for the most part. However, mortals are going to ruin everything again, right?
So don't we always?
Yeah.
I hate us.
It is the way.
And again, there's a lot of shit going on here, but this is kind of the overarching thing that ends up getting us to where we are now. So you guys remember how I said this whole thing started with Runeterra being world runes made out of world runes? That's how you get Runeterra. Anyway, wouldn't you know it, some of the mortals on Runeterra found the world runes that created the world.
Oh, no.
Beans, right? So anyway, these are like nuclear warhead empowered magical artifacts that they just find, and they start using them to wage war upon one another for like power and control. Like literally, if you look at this map, there's a crater area right next to the land of Noxus. I believe there's supposed to be a city there, but it got nuked.
I was silently wondering here, like what are these gaps kind of in the map? So okay.
If you notice, the Pangea doesn't connect back into that very well.
Yeah.
I think there was actually a city there that got torched. Per at least a couple of the videos that I watched as research for this.
Whoa.
And so what we end up with, and what kind of leads us to this place where we are now, where you can select your champion and go into the Summoner's Rift to battle, is that we are left in a place where there are all these varying nations of different interest and power and influence, that they are vying for power using these varying immense magic or forbidden powers or dark influences. And so every match in League of Legends is you selecting your champion to go into the Summoner's Rift to battle for power and influence and strategic gain here in this war.
They created like a Dragon Ball Z No Man's Land.
Yes.
To
Just
fight
for
in.
battle.
That's super rad.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Which I think is like a really, really, it's a really cool way to justify like a game where they could have just said like, pick your favorite character, nerd, and get in there and fight. Like, it's actually like, oh no, like you can like logistically say these are people fighting for, Demacia, to try and gain influence, over Noxus, because Noxus guys are all bad.
Oh, jerks. Question for you, Todd.
Yeah.
So the runes, is it a thing these characters picked up and used somewhere else? Is it just like they found the rune carved into the earth and touched it and blew things up? Or imbued them with power? Like how's this play out?
The third one.
Okay.
I believe that they once you pick up a rune and you have that rune, you gain power from that rune.
So they're like the shouts in Skyrim. Like you get you find the rune, you absorb it somehow, and then you take it somewhere else and nuke the space there.
Yeah, and I believe the power of the runes, and this is by no surprise to anyone, is intoxicating. Like,
sure.
It's one of those things where,
of course it is.
I found this immensely powerful thing, and boy, howdy.
And man, I just can't wait to blow something up with it.
Can't wait to go Dark Suit Spider-Man on these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is like the gist, the overview of kind of the 10,000 feet in the air lore of League of Legends of how you get here. Do you have thoughts on at least the lore part?
I mean, this is cool, and like, I don't want to say that it's a generic story because it's not. Like, obviously it has its own twist, but at the same time, this is such a common like fantasy comic booky thing that it's like, yeah, sure, I'm in. Like, you've taken a story that I know, you've changed the names and faces, you've put it in a cool setting, and it's just as interesting to me as it has been every other time I've heard this story, Like, it's a fun plot, and I like this plot, and I'll enjoy it no matter who you put in it.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth sharing, and we're gonna get to it here in a minute. Each character's story, like, you could find your favorite character out of the 151 characters, and like you can place them firmly in this map, and you can find out like what their story is and where they were at and what they were doing, and probably find that they interacted with at least 2 or 3 other champions and see how that story sprawls. And again, that is a podcast in itself. Like, that is that you could dedicate one episode to each one of these characters and tell their story and map the whole thing, and there's no way we can do that here. But I think like I would agree with what you said, Matt. It's kind of like a generic story, but it's interesting enough to be like, all right, like I like what you've done and I dig it. I'm here.
I'm going to take a step further, and that's going to sound like I'm ragging on it, but I'm not, because everything does this. It's not a generic story. It's bits and pieces of a lot of different generic stories patchwork together to make its own. And that's not a criticism, because that's what everything ever is. But the mystery is a little less covered with it. You can see where they're pulling these influences from. They're definitely making their own story with it. It's cool.
It's fantasy Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like, Dragon Ball Z was a great example. The Secret Wars Battle World was a great example. Like,
yeah, and that's, I think, the appeal. Part of the appeal of this is like there's a little bit of Dragon Ball Z in this. There's a little bit of Magic the Gathering in this. There's a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons in this. Like, whatever your nerd flavor is, you can find it in League of Legends, because that's how they built it, and it's very cool. But like, let's not kid ourselves. That's also very much what they did here.
Yeah.
They had to do it. They had to give you, like, okay, so like kind of like Magic, right? Where you're coming in and it's like there are a lot of things that are like other things. Like there's a character like a Captain America, or there's a character like my favorite character from Final Fantasy. They aren't the character that I know. These aren't characters that I actually like have heard of before, but they're like other things. So you have to create, like, you have to make them look like other things and evoke other things from media that you enjoy in order to make people connect with these things.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so interesting too. Like, one thing I've learned from us doing all of these flavor texts over the years is that games and stories that do this, where it's like, yeah, this is the big hits of your 5 favorite nerd things all chopped up and put into one cohesive thing. Like Overwatch was, and like Magic the Gathering was. Like, those are the stories that I enjoy and that I like following, and then I'm like, yeah, I could get interested in this property and learn all the names and get invested, versus things like Kingdom Hearts, where they try to write a whole new story, and it's just like, I hate all of this and I don't like it.
Can I make one pedantic argument?
I
as
mean, you
someone who is
can.
not
I'm
gonna
not gonna.
defend-
You're going to
I'm not gonna
anyway.
listen, but you
I'm
can.
I'm not defending Kingdom Hearts. I think what you're comparing is Western versus Eastern fantasy too. I think that's part of it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
That's all.
that's definitely
Not defending
true.
Kingdom Hearts.
No,
because that's a
But like,
mess.
not to shit on what you love, Kyle, but like, I'd put Animorphs on the Kingdom Hearts side, where like,
Oh, for
goddamn,
sure.
that story's a little bit bonkers, and trying to follow. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you take a story that is its own new thing that doesn't have a bunch of
Let me try and guess where you're going and say it. Say it
go ahead,
better.
Kyle, please help.
When you start small and then have to blow it up to God level by the end of your run, things get weird. If you start at God level and build it small, it feels a little more self-contained and
It's very well put.
understandable. Kingdom Hearts and Animorphs both went the other way and went,
Yeah.
here's 6 teens/1 teen.
Right.
Shoot them through a story that takes them to fighting god level powers, versus League of Legends or Magic, which is like, all right, we got these gods, and occasionally normal humans walk through the fight, and it's easier to grok when you go that way.
The idea that like the idea of multiple worlds or multiple realities, in this case, like they're just an infinite number of potential civilizations or towns, gives you an infinite number of source material. Like, if you really like steampunk and you want to build a steampunk city, you can.
Yeah.
Like, if you want a spooky town for Halloween, for your Halloween event, you can do that. If you want if you want a Christmas town, like Nightmare Before Christmas Town, fuck it. This Christmas Town now.
And the way this story is set up is that you don't have to backwards engineer Christmas Town into your story now. It just is another world you visited. Whereas if Kingdom Hearts or Animorphs wants to do Christmas Town now,
You better hope there's a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Well, and I mentioned that there's, due to the world rune magics, that there's a crater in the world, that all we need is a hero or like a global event that dries up part of the sea, and there we have a area back, like, or a hero, a celestial stops in that can reverse time, and there's a thing there now. Like, since it's just like they can do whatever they want to, and they've been doing it for 11 years, and it seems to be going pretty well.
Oh no, a watcher teleported a new landmass into our map.
There it is.
It's like, all right, we're here now.
A new void opened up. Here's a new void champion.
Yep.
It's overpowered. It won't be fixed for 2 patches. It's yours now. Deal with it. Speaking of new champions, I want to talk a bit about champions. But before we get there, let's go ahead and just take a quick break.
Hey everyone, sorry if you were expecting the Wii Shop music. Lucky for you, there are like 1,500 covers on YouTube and Spotify and wherever else you stream music. I'm here today to tell you that we would like to fill this slot with something other than the Wii Shop music. We've sort of reached the point with this podcast that we would really love to take on a sponsor or two. And we're not looking for your quips or your lawnmowers or your purple mattresses, although I would very much like at least 2 of those 3 things. I'll let you decide which 2. We are looking for indie creators in the nerd space just like us. We're not trying to get rich off this show. We just want to help spread indie nerd culture around the globe. So if you are someone who makes dice, if you are an artist who takes commissions, if you have a video game or nerd or comic related brand, we would love to run an ad for you on the show. We've put together some sponsorship packages, and we've made sure to keep the price point low enough that people like us would be able to afford it. So if you have any interest in advertising with us, or you know someone who might,
shoot us an email and get in touch at debatethiscast@gmail.com.
All right, so we're back. So like I said, the last thing I want to do today is just go over just a couple of the heroes that I thought kind of stuck out, things that are fun, things that are new, some that I think, at least Andrew, Kyle, myself will recognize, some that are new or new to us. So I want to start with Jyn the Virtuoso. So
Right off the bat, he plays a violin, right?
he definitely plays a violin.
Is he the bard? Tell me he's the bard, Todd.
Oh, he's not. There is a character named Bard, and that is not a bard really.
Is this Ellen Page's character in
Umbrella Academy?
Umbrella Academy?
Is this the white violin?
So all of the things you're saying are just way nicer than what this character actually is. So
beans.
I'm taking a couple direct lines from what is Jyn's memoir biography. And one of the lines is that Jyn is a psychopath who treats murder as an art.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. So
way off base.
Yeah.
I cut myself on that edge.
Jyn. So Jyn is like the Punisher, but without a moral compass. If you could say that the Punisher has like a strong moral compass, and without the Punisher has no tact, where I think Jyn is, very precise and quote artsy with like Jyn's killing. So
yuck.
Yeah.
Jyn sounds like a villain from Dexter.
He sounds like Jack the Ripper.
Jyn is Jack the Ripper, the villain from Dexter. See all of the above. So Jyn traveled the countryside being known as the Golden Demon for a long time, hunted by authorities, which also ultimately ended up being two other champions, Shin and Zed. So they kind of like tie their stories in. Jyn was this like serial killer that would, do these killings with like a flair and an art to them. So yeah, very Dexter-esque with the killings.
Yeah.
To move forward and to explain like how, because all these champions end up in the war, the Summoner's Rift that you can bring about. So Jyn was ultimately captured. Jyn was put into prison, but Jyn would not share like any of the secrets to his art and, how he murdered and what he did. Anyway, as I described earlier, war is happening. War is everywhere. And ultimately, Jyn was freed from his prison by an unknown force. Like, we don't know who let Jyn out.
But he was just too good at killing to not be in this war.
Yeah.
And it gets worse. So further, not only was Jyn like freed by an unknown source, Jyn was then also given endless resources for his killing.
Of course.
He's given a license to kill.
License to kill.
Because it was Amanda Waller, and she started the Suicide Squad, and the government needed to pay somebody to kill people.
Yeah, well, like, so Jyn goes from just being this, like, strategic, artsy murderer to this strategic, artsy murderer who now has unknown benefactors and endless funds for his armaments, to the point that if you see like the image I put in here, Jyn has this big like bulge on his shoulder. That is it is a mass accelerator that attaches to his hand cannon.
Oh, wow. What an incredible sentence that was. Can you say it again,
that
please?
Yeah.
Bigger than his head.
Yeah, so Jin's got just typical mass accelerator. There's a really good quote that I think really nails Jyn as a character, and it was from the wiki. And it seems that all of Runeterra might be but a canvas for the atrocity that is Jin's art, and only he knows where the next brushstroke will fall. So, like, it's this very, like, edgy, like, painting, pun intended, painting you a picture as to, like, who this champion is and, like, how deadly they are.
He's the Banksy of murder.
He is the Banksy
of... Do you unlock
that's really good.
crawling by Linkin Park when you also unlock this character and it just plays the entire time you play?
That's his WWE intro.
Oh man. And in case you're curious, Jin's ult is Curtain Call, and he transforms his gun into the shoulder mounted mega cannon. It's a whole thing. Which is actually kind of cool. I'm watching the image on loop right now because that's what I'm doing with my life.
Why does he have a Guy Fawkes-esque mask? Is that just to be more edgy? Or is it?
Well, I think
He's QAnon.
I mean, I think stop it. I think that Andrew did hit it like it's the Jack the Ripper-esque, like, you know, who is this mysterious murderer that's traveling the countryside? Like, oh, we got him. Oh, but now he's out and he's back to do more artsy killings. Also, like I said,
Said no cop ever. Oh man, that artsy killing happens again.
The character model is very, very cool. I dig the mass acceleration thing on his shoulder. Like, whatever, it feels right.
I'm on board with all of it except the Guy Fawkesian mask. That's where I draw the line.
What if instead he had a very elaborate cartoony mustache? Would that be better or worse?
I would buy
be
that
different.
skin. I would pay
It would be
$20
different.
for that skin.
Yeah.
So that is Jyn. So another one I wanted to hit is Rise. So if you have ever played League of Legends or watched League of Legends or looked at a picture of League of Legends heroes, Rise is the poster child.
The week of League I've played, Rise was a free hero that week, and apparently has a low bar of entry. And I played a lot. I played Rise that week.
Yeah.
And then I uninstalled the game.
He's like the mascot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rise is like the guy. I think Rise and Teemo are probably two of the biggest mascots. Rise is like the token mage. It's Rise the rune mage. Like, he is tied to the lore.
Oh.
He carries the lore in his left hand.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So Rise is a good example of how a hero just gets like put into the lore and supports it more. So Rise's whole thing is that he had studied under his master, an even greater sorcerer known as Tyrus of Helia. And so remember how I had talked about how there are world runes? Remember those things? Anyway, him and his sorcerer master had been like exploring the land, and they would see that like people would get these world runes, they become corrupted. Well, one day, Rise found that his master had found a world rune, and not just one world rune, but two world runes.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
Yeah. Oh beans. Like, and so he found his master with these two world runes, and like had just noticed that his master was going mad with power. And so in that moment, before his master could defend himself, Rise murdered his master with all the magic force that he could. And then he decided to dedicate himself to hunting down as many world runes as he could and then locking them away.
Okay.
He was collecting the Infinity Stones to lock away in hidden
He
places.
used the runes to destroy the runes.
Destroy the runes. Yeah, and if you search for Rise images on Google, you'll eventually find him with an Infinity Gauntlet on.
Sure.
Like
Of course you will.
that is there. Anyway, Rise is just awesome. Like he's one of the heroes that they've made videos like telling his story a bit more, and it actually shows him like finding a rune and like stashing it away and then like being tempted to take it for himself before like
That's cool.
leaving to go find more.
Yeah. Wouldn't using this rune help you find more runes? Don't you want to
Well,
do
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Don't you want to carry 5
Like
of
a-
these runes?
It's like a nuclear deterrent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another good one that I thought was a pretty cool story, and this is a good story of like, these are not necessarily like celestials or mortals. It's a spirit. It's a champion that was made out of a spirit, and that is Kindred, the Eternal Hunters. And so Kindred is a very, very cool story in that Kindred represents the twin essences of death. So it's like a anthropomorphic lamb with like a wolf spirit that hangs out with it. And so Kindred is like the lamb and the wolf. It's collectively Kindred. So as the literal spirit of death, the story is Kindred is known all around Runeterra, and the lamb will appear to those who welcome and accept their death, and it will greet them with a swift fate, while the wolf will hunt down those that try to escape their death and evade that moment that death comes calling. So it ends up just
cool.
being this, like just a cool,
Yeah.
a good. It's not like this is a champion that was a hero that was ascended or a celestial or a void monster. Like, this is a spirit that exists.
I think we've touched on every flavor text. So now to say like that's our Studio Ghibli nod.
That is hugely.
So,
So I've got, I think, 3 more, and this one is kind of it's a twofer, and this is my favorite one. So it is of Nasus, the Curator of the Sands, and Renekton, the Butcher of the Sands. I think that, so Nasus was one of my favorite characters, and this is such a cool story. Like, I knew these characters were linked beforehand, but reading up more, it's very, very cool. So these were brothers to start, and they lived in in Shurima, the sand desert area, and Nasus was the older brother, Renekton being the younger. Nasus was the strategic general, intelligent, battle-minded that became the youngest general in all of Shurima. And wouldn't you guess it, Renekton was not. Renekton was not those things. Whereas Nasus was strategic and mindful in his battles, Renekton was ferocious and brave and, delighted in the physical aspect of battle. I think an important note here that they pointed out, alternatively, Nasus, he was great at battle, but he did not enjoy it. He felt pain each time one of his soldiers would die. So ultimately, fast forward, Nasus falls ill. A fun little Easter egg is that supposedly he had a run-in with the Child King mummy named Amumu, which is another character.
Okay.
Amumu is the mummy child. And if you look up Amumu, you've probably seen Amumu before. He's this
he's adorable.
He's the Eeyore of zombie children. Like, he is
so cute.
Yeah.
I just want to see how many more times we can get you to say Amumu, because it's a very good name.
Yeah.
So, fearing Nasus's death because he was mortal at the time, the people of Shurima chose to have him ascended. They wanted to raise him up to become their powerful, champion. However, he was so literally weak that he couldn't even climb up onto the disc to have the ascension process happen. And so his brother chose to pick him up and carry him to the disc, believing that he would be eviscerated by the power of the ascension. Yeah, so it was this wholesome brother moment. So, however, when they were engulfed in the ascension process, they were both turned into these ascended champions. And so Nasus was transformed into this jackal-headed Anubis warrior, while Renekton became this muscle-bound, hulking gator with a giant blade.
So Renekton was not an alligator the whole time?
He was not an alligator the whole time.
They
he
were
was a
normal
person.
humans.
They were normal people.
That's a good clarification, because this whole time I've been like, I mean, this guy, of course he enjoys battle. He's a fucking alligator.
Yeah,
is this like a Link to the Past Dark World? You turn into your inner self or whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
He wasn't always the mascot for Florida. He was. So anyway, with this ascension became this near immortality, and so Nasus decided to hone his life to studying and becoming a better general and learning and improving. And Renekton started to kind of lose his humanity because he's a giant gator.
Devoted his life to being a giant alligator with a sword.
And I'm gonna do alligator things. And so one day Nasus found him at the site of a massacre of his own creation. He had just killed a bunch of people, and so they had sidelined kind of their confrontation because there was going to be another ascension for a great mage named Xerath, who, wouldn't you guess it, is also a champion you can play as. And something went wrong, because of course, and so they forced Xerath back into a magical sarcophagus that they just happened to have. I have an image of Xerath in here breaking out of his magical sarcophagus. It's kind of metal.
Usually it is when you break out of a sarcophagus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is never not cool. That is cool 100% of the time.
Well, so this battle breaks out then. So we have Nasus and Renekton fighting this magical void mage now. And it comes down to the point that Renekton tackles him into a tomb and says, Nasus, lock us in here. I'm going to sacrifice myself to save everyone else. Lock me in here with Xerath. And so Nasus reluctantly does. And Xerath and Renekton, for centuries, they battle. They fight in this tomb to the point that Xerath starts poisoning Renekton's mind, telling him that Nasus locked you in here because he's jealous. He didn't want you to share any of that power with him. He just wanted it for himself. And so Nasus is so wrecked with guilt that he ultimately leaves the lands to just wander the desert by himself to try and get over it. Because he's so guilt-ridden. And then eventually another hero named Sivir, or Sivir, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, ultimately releases them from this tomb, because why wouldn't you? And so Renekton, with his broken brain, who just wants revenge and blood, quote, driven on by the thirst for blood and vengeance, takes to the sand to find his brother Nasus. And that is an excellent story.
That's pretty cool.
That
Yeah,
is
that's a
very
cool
cool.
story.
I like they got 2 more champions out of the story, and like
Yep.
the backstory for the 2 brothers. Can you answer this question, Todd? Is I gotta find the name again. Is Zareth, is that character model this energy creature surrounded by his own tomb? Is that what I'm looking at? Because that's
Yes.
awesome.
Yes, that is exactly what it is. It is an energy creature, like you nailed it, like encapsulated in its own magical,
Oh.
like shattered tomb.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, that's rad.
The art of this is very cool. Everything looks awesome.
Yeah. So some pieces of this. So Nasus was one of the really early heroes, and Renekton came late in the time that I was still playing. And so like they had planted the seeds, and then they added more, obviously. And then Zareth came even later. So like I think it was a good example of what Kyle had said earlier, where they kind of like took the lore and built on the lore and picked apart the lore and added more to the lore. But yeah, he is an arcane being trapped in a magical sarcophagus that like cracks and floats around him, and it's excellent.
Before we move on, I also need to point out that one of the Renekton skins is him as a lifeguard, and
Yes.
Oh shit.
and it is
That's
amazing.
great.
Yes. That is very true.
Did you say Renekton and Nasus were 2 of like the original ones?
Nasus was.
Okay.
If Nasus wasn't original, he was super early on.
I was gonna say, because the skins I'm looking at of Renekton also reek of like fan favorite character. Let's give him a lot. Let's just put him in every. Let's put this alligator man in every variation of an alligator man we can.
So one thing I didn't talk about is some of the gameplay that like everyone has their own utility system that they use to cast their spells, if you will, to use their abilities. And so like a lot of them have like magic power, or some of them it uses their own life. Renekton is one that uses his rage.
Nice.
So like as he attacks, he builds rage. So like he wants to do more damage to build rage to use his abilities. Like it's Renekton is very, very cool. 2 more that I think are really fun and really early on. So Ergot the Dreadnought is a hero that is just absolutely excellent. So
A+ name.
Oh yeah.
yeah, right. So Ergot was an executioner in Noxus, right? So he was there doing dirty deeds. Hey, point me and I'll kill him.
How cheaply did he do those dirty deeds, Todd?
They were done pretty cheap. They were, dare I say, dirt cheap.
All right.
Well, so he was ultimately sent on a mission, to go kill this person, as you would as an executioner. And it was a setup. I don't know why it was a setup, but it was a setup, because that's what the story lore told me. And then he was, quote, sent to the Chemtech mines, where he was to be enslaved. I don't know what the Chemtech mines are.
They don't
Sounds
sound
pretty
good.
Great. So the mines warden, Baron Voss, they decided to torture him after he had served in these mines for so long. And his body and mind was so like wrecked from serving in these mines that anything that this Baron would do to him to torture him wasn't as bad as the physical punishment of being in the mines and what he had already experienced. So he just laughed at the Baron as it did this like torture to his arms and legs and whatnot, to the point that his torture drove her to leave the mines abandoned, like with all the people there, because he had like freaked her out so much by laughing at her torture. And so he just took over the mines. Those are Ergot's mines now. And he then began using the technology in the Chemtech mines to replace his weakened limbs with industrial machinery. So hence why you end up with what is actually Ergot, who is like if Kang or Krang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was way worse.
It's a giant like human upper half on a mechanical spider body.
I got it. Hold on.
It's
I got
the
this
villain.
one.
It's the villain.
Daniel Day-Lewis in Wild Wild West.
Hold on.
No.
I wasn't gonna go Wild Wild West. I was gonna say it is It is
Monsters Inc.
Bane on top of the Monsters Inc. guy. Like if Monsters Inc.
Yes.
Wait,
The spider guy.
Walter J. Henry J. Waternoose. If Henry J. Waternoose was also Bane from Batman, which is a better reference than Wild Wild West.
It sure isn't, because Andrew and I were going for the same.
And that wasn't Daniel Day-Lewis. It was Kenneth Branagh. Sorry.
I was really surprised to hear Daniel Day-Lewis come out of your mouth, but yeah, it was. That was the reference I was also racing to make.
The bottom line is Ergot is a ballin' character to look at, and the current resolution to Ergot's story is that currently he was captured in chains and hauled away to a fortified cell, but, and I quote, "One must wonder if any cage can ever hope to hold him for long."
Well, yeah, he's a giant, like, chemically enhanced Spider-Man.
Who's capturing him?
Yeah.
Who's capturing this thing? What did you use to capture him? A bigger chemically induced spider?
He's clearly, like, undead or something now, too. Like, so, of course he'll escape again, because why wouldn't he?
So I've got one more, and this one's pretty metal, pun intended. So this is Mordekaiser, the Iron Revenant.
Mordekaiser.
That is an outstanding name.
Wow.
Well,
So it's unpack already.
So originally known as a warlord named San Uzal. So San Uzal had just been this warlord rampaging over the lands. As mortal warlords do, death was upon him. And he had said, I look forward to, I'm going to rest next to God's table at the Hall of Bones. Like, I will have this warrior's death and I will live there and it'll be excellent. However, when he died, he found himself in this empty gray wasteland. Not in, the Hall of Bones, no glory, nothing.
He didn't go to Valhalla. He went to the other thing.
He went to a Walmart parking lot.
Yeah.
Like, he was very sad. And so he's there, it's the spirit, and other spirits would arrive and leave, and he just refused to fade away because he was so angry and fueled by rage and torment. And so one day, as they are wont to do, a coven of sorcerers decided to bring him back from the dead because they needed this thing. I guess you need this warlord back. And so, however, this must have been a hurried reviving session because they didn't have any flesh and bones to revive him into. So instead they made a body using metal plates of old armor, and it became a revenant of iron and hate.
Got it.
They didn't have the gold. They didn't have the right golden components.
Yeah.
They had to fudge the numbers a little bit.
And there's the Five Nights at Freddy flavor text callback where you take a bunch of soul goo and jam it in a robot.
Nice.
Yes, they crammed the soul goo into a robot, and as it came to life, it uttered its new name, Mordekaiser. And this is quote, and then began his second conquest of the mortal realm with his new mace Nightfall.
Nice.
And so ultimately, was defeated again, and his soul went to the afterworld again. And however, when it arrived there, he was there with all the other souls that he had ushered in before him as his new army. And so, though he is currently defeated, the name Mordekaiser still is whispered in fear by those who study this old forgotten history. And this is another direct quote. They pray that he would not return permanently, as they know of no way to stop him.
Good.
It's just
That's cool.
buck wild. And again, what we talked about, 6-7 heroes. There are 151 of these heroes.
147 more of them. Yeah.
My God.
Wow.
And some of their backstories, I'm sure, are incredible. This is just a small sampling of these others. I don't know what Malphite's deal is, but he's a rock monster, and I'd kind of like to know what Malphite's deal is.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that today, but I could.
Keep doing it, Todd.
I won't do it. There's too much. We hit the lore, we hit the gameplay, we hit some of the stories here. We're kind of coming to a close here. What are some thoughts? What is your takeaway? What are your feelings? How much League of Legends character lore how many champions lore are you going to look up before this day is over?
I think to reiterate what I said earlier, this is all cool. I enjoyed all of this. It is, you take a story that I know pretty well without any knowledge of League of Legends, and then you change the names and faces, and all of the names and faces are rad as hell. So that's cool. I looked on YouTube while we were recording. It's about 2.5 hours. I will probably watch all of the cinematics, and
You should.
that will probably be where my venture into League of Legends as a property ends. But it's cool. Like it's sweet,
Yeah.
you know, like MOBAs aren't my thing. Well, top-down MOBAs, I don't know, whatever the fuck a MOBA is. League of Legends isn't my style of game, but the lore is cool, the characters are cool, and I'll 100% watch a 2.5 hour digitally rendered movie and say, man, that was really cool the whole time.
Yeah.
Similarly, yeah, I'm into like these character backstories, and I love that each of these 151 characters has a like super like fantasy metal background somehow. I, like Matt, will probably click around on this champions page for a little bit, you know, decide my favorite one, and then close the League of Legends page and not open it again until I have to for this podcast again. But it's, you know, I love the like the characters, the superheroes or villains of this story, like I do any other property, and they're very cool and great. So I'll do a little more digging before I abandon this for till next time.
Yeah.
Real quick before Andrew answers, Kyle, how much Tom Kench RP and fan wiki storytelling are you gonna get into?
I'm already a member of 3 Tom Kench RP message boards, so
Nice.
I will be continuing that afterwards.
Yeah, I'll say this: nothing gets me more excited than looking at a massive fantasy mumbo jumbo map and seeing like different, very specific city states and like the geopolitical strife between these different regions, and being able to be like, that's where the dwarves live. That's the steampunk world. That's the swamp where the lizards live. Like, I love that shit, which is why I love Elder Scrolls. And I think, if there was a single player RPG a la Skyrim, or even like an MMORPG set in this world, I would be so fucking in. I can't play League anymore, like for my own health, but but I don't regret most of the time that I spent, with the exception of like that last couple weeks. And I don't want to take anyone's love and enjoyment away from this, and I can say very objectively, this is cool.
Yeah, I agree. I found a new, honestly, like not even appreciated love for the League of Legends lore and the story, and I'm probably gonna watch that same video that Matt talked about. And I will have a greater appreciation of League of Legends. I also don't have a place in my schedule or my heart for downloading League of Legends and going back to it. But I would super get into something else set in the League of Legends world, because this, say what you will, you might hate League of Legends as a game, you might not be into MOBAs, but like they've built something very cool.
Yeah.
I'm lucky in that this didn't come out at a time in my life I could have fallen into this well, because I would have fallen into this well if it had come out at a different time in my life.
I think it should be acknowledged that this is one of the first and still most successful games as a service.
Yes.
And that, and it kind of was a thing that was a little, I would say, ahead of its time. Something that is very common now, and you see all of these different types of these business models, these microtransaction business models, these games that have seasons. Like, this was, with the exception of maybe like Diablo, like this was I think that one of the first to have like recurring, like giving people a reason to come back and like, hey, come back and play season 3 because we're doing this now, or you know, this thing where it just constantly updating.
This
and
new
updating,
character completely upheaves the meta, and you've got to come back and try it. Yeah.
How many game developers, and I can't say Riot's obviously had a couple things like Valorant that have come out since League, but like, how many game developers, like active big name game developers, do you know of that have one game on, like, that they just have one game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's really impressive too how much they've built. I mean, judging from like the flavor text that I've led, being FNAF and Overwatch, I'm a big old sucker for games that have deep lore that have nothing to do with the gameplay. And so in that sense, like League is really cool to me because there are 151 main characters. You know, it's not like there are 12 main characters and then also 130-ish other side names that are important enough to the lore that you should know. Like, to have 151 playable characters is insane. That's more than Smash Ultimate, which like of the games I play
It's
has
already a lot.
the most playable characters at like 72. So I think it's really,
And some of which are glorified palette swaps.
yeah, and some of which are glorified palette swaps, and then some of them are just like Nintendo saying, "Hey, we made a palette swap. This is another playable character." So yeah, it's impressive, and while I don't think that I would ever be interested in the game, have a decent amount of interest in the lore, at least enough to watch a 2.5-hour YouTube movie.
I will share this because I'm looking this up on my own now. League of Legends, as far as number of players, didn't peak until 2019, and like I put peak in quotes because I don't like I would guess it is not done. I would guess like the drop off in 2020 is a fluke more than anything.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to learn that. I would have assumed it hit its stride a while back and has declined since then, but there are like shelves of growth in 2019, so it has still got places to go.
Yeah, it's crazy to me too that like this isn't League of Legends 2 or like League of Legends 3. Like this is just League of Legends, where we're on Dota 2, we're on Team Fortress 2, we're about to be on Overwatch 2. Like so many of these games hit a point where they're like, all right, we really need to revitalize the fan base, or we really need to retool the game. Like this game doesn't need a patch, it needs a sequel. And for League to have lasted 12 years and not hit that point is astounding.
Oh, I would guess at this point they are not. Like there will be large overhauling patches. I guess they reached a point where they decided like, no, there will not be a sequel. We will just patch, do massive patches because it's a brand. Yeah, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Word.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we're gonna wrap this up so I can go watch at least the Tom Kench YouTube video to listen to that sweet Cajun voice. Hey, so thanks again for listening and Debate This. Follow along with the argument on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Debate This Cast. And if you yourself, yes, you, want to commission your own flavor text where we can talk all about the deepest, weirdest lore that we can find on it, you can do so at patreon.com/debatethiscast. Until next time, I'm Todd Thomas.
I'm Matt, the Banksy of Murder. Cole.
I'm Ant. Oh. Well, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well,
I'm looking at two different things. Go ahead.
I'm Andrew. The 151st champion can be found behind the truck, Henderson.
And I'm Kyle, twice slain, thrice born Harper.
Ooh.
And we're saying thanks for debating with us. And if you think we're wrong, then you can come fight us behind the swing sets, nerds. That was edgy as shit, Kyle.